You're watching Byline Wilmington on CBS 10 WILM. Here's your host, Don Ansell.
We're back. We're talking about autism today. Our guests are both involved with this issue. Amanda McCullough's daughter was diagnosed with a form of autism, and Dr. Ruth Hurst has been in the field for over 30 years. All right, so we said we're going to talk about the cause. What are some of the suspects, some of the causes that are being looked at today, Ruth?
Well, there are a number of areas that people have been researching. Neurodevelopment, errors in neurodevelopment is...
That would be prenatal?
Could be prenatal, and could be related to all manners of things. Things like what we call in the field teratogens. So these could be...
What is that?
Things like environmental toxins or poisons.
Yeah, diet too.
Diet could be related.
Jenny McCarthy, who was a celebrity and has been very active, her child is autistic.
Yeah, there's a lot of research now that would suggest that many of the children with autism also have some chronic medical conditions that go along with it. For example, they may have a GI issue, they may have severe allergies, they may have difficulty detoxifying metals and such. And in my daughter's case, Katie had tests, blood tests, urine, stools, and we can see that she still has metals in her body that she's unable to detoxify. We know that she has food allergies. We know that she has a huge yeast problem. And so it would seem that a number of people with autism also have these biomedical
that
issues.
Could trigger...
That would certainly mean that...
disorder?
Yeah, I think that's where the hesitancy is appropriate, I think, because it's hard to say whether we're talking about cause and effect or co-occurring things. We don't, for example, if we looked at all the children in North Carolina to determine how many of all the children in North Carolina had unusual levels of metal in their body, would we find a big difference between those children and children with autism? What we want, what's part of the issue here is that the brain development can be affected by so many different things that I think the opinion sort of at this point would be that there are probably multiple causes.
Because you mentioned environmental factors and metals. Mercury is a big suspect.
Mm-hmm. Mercury is a big suspect.
Some of the folks that are opposing Titan establishing a plant here, that's one of their objections, is that the mercury levels will increase here, and it could increase autism, incidence of autism.
There are known reports of mercury poisoning in areas of the world and the effects that it's had on populations, for example, in Japan, where it's been very obvious and very heavy concentrations of mercury. However, the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine that people have been very concerned about.
That's been, let me just interrupt you there to give our viewers a little bit more information about that. That's been a suspect for years, and people active in this issue of autism have pointed to the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine that had a mercury-based preservative. It was called thimerosal. Yeah, and they said that is it could be a big contributing factor to autism. But today there's been, not today, but recently there's been some pushback to that and said that is not, in fact a judge ruled that was not the cause of autism.
But I think that's not the cause in a healthy child, but it didn't talk about a child that perhaps had a compromised immune system, a child that may have been weakened by some perhaps antibiotics 6 months earlier for an ear infection. That was looking at a very healthy child.
Well, could I also just say that one of the original articles that put this out in a medical journal was recently retracted by the journal.
However, by the scientists that did the research, actually.
Yeah, and the issue here is the worries that Amanda is pointing out, is that, you know, there are these possibilities, and we can't answer it today, but the idea is that I don't know that the door is closed to further research in that area.
Well, that's my question. What's the current thinking in the, I'll call it the autism community, about the link between autism and childhood vaccines?
I think it's just confusing, because here in Wilmington, for example, every doctor has signed to say we don't want Titan because of the chance that mercury might. But the doctors themselves, there is this
say tension. There's no link.
Right. You know, for me, the solution cannot take place without the doctors. We need their support on this. We need their, you know.
And the medical community is not supporting.
Well, they're just, to me, they're in a very difficult place.
Right.
I mean, we expect them to be God. We expect them to have all the perfect right answers. We don't allow them the chance of saying, you know what, maybe we need to look at what we did, what we thought was right 10 years ago. We don't allow them to make errors. So it's very hard, I think, for doctors to come forward and revisit this, but we need them.
Right.
And I read some statistics. We got to take a break a minute, but I just want to get this reaction to this. Autism rates have risen since thimerosal has been removed from many vaccines, which might suggest it was not a factor.
Well, again, I think that the issues here are, we have research evidence will emerge over time. What we have at this point suggests that there's not a link. Now, if I say that to the right people in the autism community, they'll become very upset by that, because this is such a controversial and confusing issue. But I think we need more work needs to be done.
And this thimerosal mercury just throws us off. I'd rather not.
Exactly.
Because we know that the fact is statistics are going up. So therefore, let's do something about this. I mean, 1% of the population, if 1% of the population were blind or deaf, we would be really doing something. 1% is like every red-headed child, you know, that you can see. We have a child that you can't see on the autism spectrum. That's a huge statistic, and we need not think about thimerosal, mercury, or those things that get us into contentious areas. We need everybody to come to the table and start to look at, okay, maybe we can't cure this, but what can we do to treat it, and therefore also, you know, look at preventative measures.
We're going to take a break, and we'll talk about, think about this, 1 in 100 children are now diagnosed with autism. We'll talk about that when we come back. Stay with us.